Violence in video games is often talked about in the media for all the wrong reasons. There's a lot of emphasis on the gratuitous side of things, the blood, the guts, the gore. But forget games like God of War and the concept of excessive depictions or graphic depictions of violence. The more important question is, why is there any violence in video games in the first place? Why is violence so commonplace that even in children's games you're often bonking things or attacking things or being attacked? Mario is a platformer, but you're jumping on Goombas to kill them. In Pokemon, a game about collecting creatures, you're battling them until they faint. In Minecraft and Terraria, games about building, you're attacking zombies with swords. But why is this? I'm Blitzen Cross, and today I'm taking a look at violence in video games. So historically, a lot of inspiration for games came from Dungeons & Dragons, a tabletop RPG released in 1974. And a big draw of tabletop games is fighting huge creatures. Surprise, because you can't do that in real life, so when you are imagining everything in your head, it's cool to do the things that you can't do in real life. And this concept has transferred over to video games pretty cleanly. But this historical perspective does not explain violence in platformers and other genres. One reason for violence is the need for conflict. A game needs motivation. It needs a reason to keep you playing. Just like a book needs a reason to give you to keep reading, or a movie to keep you watching. But in a book or a movie, they're not asking you to do anything. You don't have to use your hands, and you don't even really have to think if you don't want to. A game requires you to do one or both of these things a lot of the time to progress. So there has to be something motivating you to do those things. There has to be something motivating you to push the buttons and use your hands. Some sort of compelling conflict that pushes you into action. And what's more compelling than some guy trying to bash you over the head with an axe? And that is one reason that violence makes its way into games. It introduces an easy source of conflict. And another reason, I think, is health. In a lot of games, you have a health system because you don't want the player to fail all at once. When Mario falls down a hole through the bottom of the stage, he dies. If that's the only way to fail, well, that's not really fun. So instead, he's got these cool power-ups where he gets bigger or can fly, and he can then lose them by running into things. The idea of a health or heart system allows you to let the player fail a few times without having to start over. This is a very fundamental concept in gaming and game design, and combat sort of naturally arises from this decision. How do you lose health? Well, you have to get hit. And why are you getting hit? Well, presumably something is trying to hit you, and then it makes sense for you to be able to hit that thing back. Another reason is the use of space. In particular, when 3D arrived onto the scene, it wasn't clear what kind of activities we could represent using the new 3D. And then there was combat. It's really compelling to have combat in 3D compared to most other things that you can translate from 2D into 3D. It's much harder to do something like realistic cooking in 3D and make it interesting compared to 2D. In fact, a lot of the purview of 2D games lately has been to do things that are non-combat. 2D indie games like Cook Serve Delicious are frequently not about combat because it's easy to represent non-combat things in a 2D space, and making it 3D doesn't really add much to it. On the other hand, a game with combat with all of the angles that are possible is very different in 2D compared to 3D. There are so many possible ways to approach a combat encounter in 3D, whereas in 2D you're sort of limited. So if you're making a 3D game, it sort of makes sense to have combat because that's an easy way to fill the space and fill the time. So those are a list of reasons, and they seem pretty disparate, right? I think the thing tying them all together, though, is sort of this historical precedent that violence is the easiest thing to do, so we keep doing it. And at this point, it's been so refined that it's hard to step away from it. Now, I don't think we necessarily need to step away from violence in games. I actually enjoy a lot of games that have deep combat systems. I love Hades. I've been playing a lot of it lately, and a deep part of the reason why I like it is the combat system. Deep and fundamentally violent systems like in Hades are a mainstay of video games and are here to stay for a very long time. And that is okay, that's actually not a bad thing. As far as gratuitous violence goes, well, that is the topic for another day. I'm Blitzen Cross, signing out for today. I'll see you next time.